Okay, so we have created the data model, data access object, database objects, and we have tested that particular the application is working on. Even we can run the database operations in the main thread, but we want to stick to our real-time scenarios. In the professional applications we don't do that, so we will try to, it will make our life a little bit difficult, but we don't want to allow those main thread queries on our database. Fine, that is what we are trying to achieve and try to understand. So we have fine, we have the main activity. So now I am going to change that particular specific main activity, and again I'm not going to design, you know that how to design those things. So I'm just trying to create that particular specific activity like that. Okay, so maybe at that particular specific, this particular part I want to put some what you can say, that we have that linear layout, we have that thing. So I'm just trying to put some margin on the top. Okay, so that we can have some space on the top side. So we say that margin top. Margin top is mean that I would say that I would want to put 30 dB, so that will bring down that particular size room database logging test. So what is they have, we have text view, which is a title one, then we have again text view, this is an edit text, this is a text view, this is an edit text, where the user use in these two fields user can give the input. And then we also have the login button, we have a register button, we have a list view that we will be talking later but not now. So that's why I am going to remove that particular specific on click event. And then we also have the cancel button, the things that are simpler. First let me implement those things, and then at the end we also have the text view. If there is some information in the database, we want to show those information here, who are the different users which exist. But I think that we don't want to stick with that as well, so I am just going to delete it. The cancel button is very simple to implement. So I say that main cancel button, the main screen, the main activity, cancel button click, maybe I can put that particular activity as well. So I can just say alt enter, and it say that you want to create that particular specific event handler method inside your main activity.java class. Yes, I want to create it. And here where is my class? Okay, this one. So what I will do, it's very simple. So we can say that finish mean it will finish the current activity in which we are running that particular specific method. So it will cancel, it will actually stop our application. Fine, simplest thing to implement in that particular specific. um, we have the view, but we have removed that part. We have the register. Okay, so registration mean that we want to register for the new students. In the beginning there is nothing inside that particular, maybe we can say that register student. You can, student can come to the application and can register itself. So right now you, maybe it's not a valid business process, but yes, for the understanding, for handling the database, we are trying to allow those users who can register as a student. Okay, so when we click on that, we want to perform few functions. Again, I go in that particular specific click property. Now we again to get particular on click attribute. Again I click alt enter, and I want to create that particular specific behavior of the method. Fine, so the point is what we need to do, what is the course of action. Again, we want to show a new activity in which we can get all those information about the students, except that student ID. We need a first name, we need a last name, we have a username, we have a password name, we have a gender, we have a mobile number, and then we can put all those information inside our database. Okay, so what we need to do on the click event of this particular register button, we need to start a new activity in which we can allow the user to enter all those information, and then we can insert those information into our database. Fine. So that's what we want to do, but we need a new activity. So what we need to do, we need to right click here and say new, go to the activity, and then we say that which type of activity. Again, I will select the empty activity, or you can simply go to the file and say that new, and then again you can go into the activity, and I want to add that particular empty activity. So we can say that this is an activity about the student registration. So we can say that student registration activity. Fine. So we have a student registration activity, and it will create the two files, the Java file as well as the UI definition file, defining XML file, the layout file. Fine, that's okay. So in the main activity, we can simply say that whenever that particular specific register button is clicked, I will create an intent. Student registration intent, and is equal to new intent. We give the context, that is this, and then we give the student registration activity dot class. Okay, right now we don't need to pass any information, we just need to start that. So we can simply say that start activity, and not activities, we are not starting the multiple, we can start only one activity, and that is our student registration intent, and that's it. So we have implemented that particular specific click event on this one as well. And the one more thing, that in the login button, again the on click property has been defined. If I just press enter, I want to create. Right now we are not going to implement it. First we need to finish that particular registration process. Once it is done, then we will come back to this particular specific activity. And as you know that we have not we have disallowed the main queries database operations, so we cannot perform that particular specific operation on our database directly within our. So how we are going to do it, I will explain you shortly, but let's comment that thing, otherwise it will give me an error message and our application is going to stop automatically. So let's go to the registration part. So the registration part, so if I just try to go into the what you can say, the student registration, again I'm not going to create that particular specific layout. I will just copy paste here, and then you will see that again we have in the top, maybe I would like to leave some space. Okay, so maybe I can say that margin on the top, I say 20 dp. Fine, we have that particular specific thing. We have the register and the cancel. So we have that particular specific, we need to provide all those information. And in this particular specific, we have the first name, we have a last name. We are not going to provide the student ID because it is auto generated. We also have the student yeah, I mean we have the student, what is that? Okay, we have this particular specific first name, and then we have the last first name, last name, student, again first name. Why it is the first name here? First name, student first name, student last name, and then edit text for the student last name. And this one is the it should be the student gender, not the first name. So we set gender. We have a student gender, and here we are going to select, here we are provide that particular specific spiner, and I'm saying that the entries, the information, they are coming from a string array. And you know that where we can define this particular specific string array, we go into the resource folder, we have the values, and then we have the strings. So inside the strings we can define a specific string array, and then we can try to use the exactly the same name, string array gender, here. So we can say that why it is control V gender, and then we can simply say that, and then we can say that item, and then what item we can have here. We can have the male, and then no, this one, and then we can have that particular item, and then we have it is a female. So these are the two possible genders that exist, so we are trying to give those, provide those information in that particular specific. So if as soon as I define that particular array with the name gender, this is going away, and look at that, it is showing you the first information, that is the male. So you can select from the drop down menu the gender of that particular specific student. Fine. We have the username, and then we have the edit text for get the entry, then we have user password, we get password, and then we have the mobile name, and then we have these two buttons which are actually register the student and the cancel the student. So we can first of all try to implement that cancel part. Cancel part is simple. As I explained you earlier, we can simply say that finish this particular specific activity, and we come back. Let me close that string, and on the registration part, again I press alt enter, and then I can create that particular event handler here. Fine. As we are going to create, if you look at that, we have all these input fields, and those input fields we need to what you can say that we need to verify that user has given the appropriate information, and then we can convert those information into a student object, and that student object we need to pass on to our DAO insert operation to insert in our database. So what we need to do here, we need to create all those edit text. So let me again, I'm just going to what you can say that we have those variables. So first of all, I'm just trying to, because these are the variables, we have edit text, student first name, student last name, student username, student password, student mobile number, and then we also have that spinner that representing the gender information about that student, and then we also have the insertion results. I mean, we can check that the student has successfully inserted into our database or not, and so on. We can verify that particular specific thing based on that particular return type, and you know that insert operation can return a long value. So to catch that particular long value, we have defined that particular insert results of variable. We can define in the method as well if you want, but right now we are just trying to create this thing. And the other thing is we need to initialize all these variables. Okay, so first thing is first, so we are going to initialize those variables inside our on create method, that you know very well that whenever we are doing the initialization, we are going to do inside. So we have that insert results, and then we are saying that edit text student first name will be student first name, last name, user. We have defined all those IDs on those UI components. We have all those IDs has been defined: registration mobile number, registration password, and then we also have the registration username. We also have that registration, I think we say that spinner underscore reg underscore registration gender as well. So that will be need to be converted into the registration gender. So we can say, so we have initialized all those input UI components in which the user are giving all those inputs about that student object, and we have initialized them so that we can use those variables inside our student registration click button event, so that we can verify them and then we can check this thing. So the first thing is that we need to check um, we need to check if the user has given some information. So we can say that etst first name dot get text dot toString dot is empty. If it is empty, we are not going to answer the database. We are trying to uh, what you can say that we are trying to show the user an appropriate message that you have not provided me the first name is required. Okay, so I'm just trying to check all those things. Okay, and I see in one of our the SDLT03 one student not only tested the is empty if it is the student is giving only that spaces, that is also considered as the string. So we can check, I mean, toString dot trim. Dot trim method, what it will do, that particular specific method, if we have spaces in the beginning or at the end of that particular specific string, it will remove those strings, and if we have only spaces, it will remove all the string, and then it will become an empty string. So let me see if we can this particular specific trick work. Dot trim, all the spaces at the beginning and the end, they will be removed, and if the string only contain the spaces, it it will remove all and it become an empty string. So let me see if it is going to work or not. And the other thing is, let me what you can say that else if we can say that last name dot get text dot toString dot trim dot is empty, then again we are not going to, instead we are going to show a message. Therefore last name is also important, we need to provide that information. So last name, and then else if we say that et and then we say that et username dot get string dot toString dot trim dot is empty, and again we are going to provide. So again we are saying that the username is required, and then in the else part, else if we are saying et we have that password dot get text dot toString dot trim dot is empty, and again we are saying that the password is required, and similarly we can say that else if we are saying that et password, so we have checked first name, last name, username, password, the mobile, and we again say get text dot toString dot trim dot is empty, and then again we are going to check. So we are going to provide that mobile number is required. Mobile number is why are we giving the toast message to the user, so that we can, if this is not the case, okay, in this we are going to create a student object and fill all these info in the object. Okay, and then we can use the what you can say that we can use that particular specific DAO to insert that object inside our database. So first thing is we need to create that particular specific student object. We say that st student is equal to new student. Okay, so of course by default values will be done, we have done that. So we can send a student dot set first name, and then we can say that et first name dot get text dot toString. Okay, so we are converting that particular specific first name into the string and putting that into the student table, in the student object. Student dot set last name, and then et last l name, okay, dot get text dot toString, and similarly we can say that st student dot set username and et username dot get text dot toString, and then we can say the student dot set password and et password dot get text dot is not insert dot toString. Okay, and then we have first name, last name, student, username, password. We have the mobile, student dot set mobile number, and then et mobile dot get text dot toString, and then we have first name, last name, username, password, and then the last thing is that the gender. And why we didn't check the gender here? The reason is the gender is coming from that particular, by default value is the male in that spiner, so that will be always there unless and until the user has changed it. So we don't need to worry about that the user has given the input or not. If he is or he or she unable to select his own gender, then it will be a problematic. It will be a wrong data inside the database, but yes, it is already there, so we don't need to worry about. But yes, we need to set that particular student gender. So set gender, we say set gender, and then we have that particular sp gender dot get selected item dot toString. So whatever that item is selected, we are going to convert it into that particular specific uh, string, and that will be going into our gender variable. So if we look at that right now, we have created our student object and put all the information inside that particular student object except our student ID. Student ID will automatically generated by the system, so we don't need to worry much about it. We are not going to provide that one. Fine, that's okay. So we have fill all the information. If we look at that, we have the all the information, put it over there: first name, last name, username, password, gender, and the mobile number. We have put all these informations from our registration form into our, so we have created that particular specific student object. But the point is, as we have inside our database, inside this particular specific database, we have removed main query. We have not allowed, so we cannot say that in the like in the main activity we have that my da object, and then we can say that insert student and pass that particular student here. We need to perform that operation, but we cannot do it inside our main activity. How we can handle that particular specific thing? So let me start our slides, in which we have a specific way to create separate threads inside our mobile applications in the Android system. So we have an async task, that is a specific class which is already exist in our libraries. And what we need to do, we need to create a class, insert a student, which actually is a child class or extends async task. And what are these three things? And this is the starting thread input, the parameters to start that specific thread, to execute that specific function as a separate thread. And the second part is it should be void, not let me what you can say that what you can let me end that particular specific slide and move that particular specific arrow to the right position, and then come back to the uh, situation here. So we have this, and this is actually the processing reporting. I mean, if you're downloading something, how many records we have studied. For example, we have to read 1 million records, and then after 100,000 record, we say that we have studied 10%. We have our progress is 10%, then we say 20%, then 30%. If you want to report that thing back to our application, yes, we can do that. This is our reporting information that we can go back to, and then we can perform something. But right now we make it void because we are not going to report anything back to the main thread. And then at the end, this is the last part, that is the result from the thread. I mean, what result we want to send back to the calling thread, calling activity or calling process. So what specific result? So parameters, progress report, and then the return type, what it should be returning it. So this is how we can define our new thread. So what we can do, we need to override a few methods that must be overridden inside our thread. So one is the do in background, the specific action, the specific operation that you want to perform in the background in that separate thread, that you need to override this particular specific method. And then you can also override other on pre-execute before you can start that specific thread. If you want to initialize certain some things, then you can run the on pre-execute. And if you want to report back some progress to the main activity, to the other processes, then you can have to implement or override that particular on progress update. And then finally you also have the on post execute one. That's once that read operation or the insert operation or the update operation inside the database has finished, then you, if you want to perform some specific action after that operation has finished, then you have to implement that particular on post execute. The only what you can only method that you have to implement, you have to override, is the do in background. The other methods are optional. If you want to do some specific thing at a specific time, then you can implement, otherwise you don't need to. So this is how we can implement insert student object. We are saying that private class insert student, that's the name of the class. It is a child class of the async task. It takes a student object as an input, and it does not show any progress, it does not return anything. And here we have implemented that particular specific um, what you can say that the do in background method, and in which we are saying that insertion results, remember we have that long insertion result variable, and then we are saying the DAO dot insert student. And then because it is having that particular specific array of the students coming as an input, and then we are saying that because we are passing only one student, so at the zero index, whatever that first object that's coming as a student, insert it into the database. And at the end, because our return type is void, nothing, it means we are need to return null. So this is how we are going to implement. So let me come to my this thing part. So the thing is, we are inside the student registration click. So I'm trying to create a nested class within that particular activity class. So we are saying that public class, we can say that insert student, and it extends, look, async task. It is giving me the option, I press enter, and then in the angle brackets we are giving the, it is going to have a student as an input, and it is going to have a void as output, and going to void. It is not small void, remember that. We are not we can't write something like this, like void. That's normally we write as a return type. Here we can't, we cannot use here on these parameters, progress and the return type, the primitive data types. The only data types we can use here are the object type with types. Okay, so now if we look at that, when we have created it, it say that you need to implement a few things. So what are those things? So I'm saying that you need to implement method. So I say that yes, we want to implement that specific method. It is returning a null, that's fine. But what we want to do, we want to access in the main activity my DAO object. Actually, what you can say that this specific function, because I can't do that particular specific database operation in the main thread, so I have to remove that thing and put it inside our a separate thread. So here we can say that the students and then 0. Okay, now the point is how we can create that particular specific thread. And the other thing is, remember that we are saying that insertion result is equal to this. Okay, insertion result is equal to this. One thing that is done, we have removed that particular database operation into a separate thread, because any class which is extending, which is a child class of async task, it is considered as a separate thread. It is run and in a separate thread. So how we can create it, we can simply say that new insertion student dot execute, and we are passing our student object as a. So first thing is it will create that particular specific thread class object, and when we say that dot execute, then actually this particular method will invoke this particular operation on this object. We can also have write something like this. Instead of like having two things, we can create, it will make things a little bit simpler. So we can say that insert student is equal to this. It create that particular specific method, a specific thread class object, and then using that particular insert student, we are saying that insert dot execute. Execute means start that specific thread. It means it will take that particular student as an input, pass that particular student as an input to in this particular method, that is do in background method, and it will automatically insert. And now once ever this particular specific operation is finished, it will return me the results in the insertion results. So that's how we can create a thread and separate our database operations from our main activity, which is handling our user interface and user interactions and everything, and passing those long operations into a separate thread. That's how we can do it. Okay, so if we want to check that does that particular specific insert operation has been successful or not, how we can do that? Remember that we are initialize that particular specific thing is insertion is -1. If it is -1, then what will happen? We are unable to insert it. So let me check. We can say that insertion student is double equal to -1. If it is -1, we are unable to insert that particular special. No, not insert student. Insertion result. Okay, so and then let me take the liberty copy paste, the favorite thing that we do, copy paste. So I say that if it is -1, the insertion result is still -1, then it means that insertion is what you can say that insertion is insertion failure. Okay, if it is in the else case, maybe I can again copy paste and then say that insertion success. Fine, that's one thing. Let me do things here as well. Okay, so insertion failure, I just want to show you a specific trick that happen all the time. Okay, so I just try to put that particular debug operation. Okay, debug operation, how we can do the debugging, that's we also going to learn here. So let me run this particular specific application. Now everything should be fine, finish everything. Okay, finger crossed. So let's see how we can check that particular specific thing, and we can see our where is our. Yeah, so I mean, as you know that we have not implemented that login part, so we are, even we click on something, it will not do anything because there we have not mentioned, we have not put anything inside that particular specific method. It is an empty method here, so we are don't need to. So if we click on the register, it is going on that particular registration. So let me put my information, Malik. Okay, mail, yes I am male. So we can have that particular specific username. I say Abbas, or the password is 123456. I try to make it standard so that we don't forget all those, and 11111. Okay, let me put that particular space. Not everywhere I have given a space, only in the mobile number I have given space. And then when I click on the register button, it say that mobile number is required. So our trick, our that specific trick that trim that particular specific information, where is that one? Yeah, trim student mobile dot get text dot to string, trim it. If it is only the space, it will remove all the spaces and it become empty, and so it is providing us that particular specific mobile number is required. It is not performing the insertion operation. So let me remove that thing. Of course, it is again, we can put a proper validation for the mobile number, but right now we are say register. If I say register, it will show me the failure, insertion failure. Does it so? Is it right? Are you sure that this particular specific object is not being inserted in our database? Okay, why it is failure? I'm doing everything right. Fine. So how we can like test it? So let me stop that particular specific activity, specific thing, and then we need to debug. And as you know, that I have put a debug checkpoint, and whenever it is going to come at this point, it is going to stop and allow me to debug that application, run my application one by one. So how we can debug? We can simply say app debug. So when we do that, is again it means saying that don't say that force close. Okay, don't click on that. So it is trying to start the debugger and everything. Again, we click on the registration button, so we provide all those information. Maybe I can say that my first name is now a little bit different. Maybe we can say that what which one. Okay, I use which okay, I say Aliza, Michael. Oh, if my spellings are wrong, don't worry about it. It's a female, and then Aliza. Password is again 123456, and then I say that the mobile number is 1234 whatever, and then I click on the register button. And look at that, whenever I'm going to come into that registration button, so if our insertion result, if we look at that, it's showing me the values of the variables. And if we look at our student, so you can see that all the information, the first name is Eliza, gender is female, last name is Michelle, Michael, and then the mobile number is this, password is this, username is this. So all those information exist in our students. This particular specific students at the index value 0, they exist. Fine. Our insertion result is -1. That's again absolutely fine. And if I just try to okay, I'm just trying to do that insertion operation. It is going into those all those sort of classes which are actually exist in our that room data structure. Okay, I want to go. I don't want to, I just want to stop at that. Maybe I can put that particular specific here as well, and then try to run it again. Yep, fine. Look at that. Once I have finished that particular insertion operation, okay, the rest is the same, but the insertion result is 2. Okay, it means that the previous record has been added inside the database, and this is the second record which we are trying to insert. And then if I just try to um, run this thing here, does it show me anything? Okay. uh, so insertion is changing, insert has been, but still it is showing me that particular specific. Let me, what you can say, that remove these points, and let me change the values, because those values has already been added. I say go to end registration. Maybe this time I choose a different username. I say that what Mike, I think I remember that Pete. Pete, so sorry if I misspell your name or something. Pete Mock, a male, username is Pete, and password is 123456. And then I am saying that 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10, that's our mobile number, and we again say register, again say insertion failure. Oh man, what's happening over there? So actually what is happening, let me explain you, don't need to be dramatic, huh? So we are starting that particular specific thread at this line we are starting that thread. This particular specific, this particular specific dot execute start this specific separate thread, and the control again return back at this particular point. This insertion operation takes some time. I would say that that's a fraction of second, nanosecond or millisecond, a fraction of millisecond, but still it takes some time before it can update the results, insertion results value. And here, immediately after starting that particular thread, our program control come back and check this value, and it always show me this particular specific failure. Why? Because the value of the insertion result is -1 before this particular specific thread is going to update this particular value. So we can't put that particular specific code here. We cannot. If we do that, it will always give me that particular failure message. So what we can do, what is the what you can say that what is the answer to this particular specific problem? So answer is we press Control Enter and we override a specific method. What is an override method? We can say that we can also say that Control O, that is show me the method that we can override in this particular thread class. So we say that on post execution. Okay, on post execution. So in the post execution, we are saying that putting that particular specific. So here we can't get, we say that get application context. We can't use this because we are not in the activity class. So get application context, we are going to use it, and then we are passing that particular specific. So insertion successful, insertion success, student ID, and we can actually show that particular specific insertion result. So we can show that particular specific ID in our toast message. Okay, so in this way we can stall that particular problem. That if we have not implemented yet the login information, otherwise I would show you that the Abbas and Eliza, they already exist in the system. Okay, so once we will do that without I think we have already inserted 3 people. So let me close these room database framework which has been opened due to that particular debugging part. We have the registration context. Okay, fine. Yeah, we are came back to only those applications that we have, classes that we have defined. So this is one thing that we need. I want to show you that once you start the execution and then you start checking that insertion results, they are going to be same exact -1, and that always give you the failure. You want to check that particular specific insertion after you have finished that particular specific database operation, not before. So that is the problem. So we always try to check those checks that has been inserted successfully or not in the post execute method, not right inside this particular specific method where we are implementing the click event. That's what I want to clarify. Fine, so we have implemented our registration part. Okay, so maybe I can add another student. Okay, and then we will have 4 students in our database. So let me click on that registration. So let me choose another one. So we have Navdeep Singh. If I can remember the names, if I'm wrong, please guys, it's just for demonstration purposes, so it is nothing to do with, she's also female. Read, I can't remember all the students name, but password is same, so you can access each other's account, don't worry about it. And then we say that okay, anything that is going to be our password, mobile number, and remember that we have put that unique property, it should be unique, remember this thing. And then we can register and look at that insertion success, student ID is 4. So we have 1 2 3 4 students in our record. And remember that Navreet, Pete, Aliza and Abbas are the students names, so we need to remember so that we can log in as those students. So okay, fine. So one more thing that I think we should be handling here, if we look at that, we are trying to finish So maybe we need to, after this particular specific, we need to finish this activity. So let me create a method here, which is a private method. It does not return me anything. Finish activity, and it just call that particular finish method. So maybe instead of having this particular method here, I can just say that finish, not finish, finish activity. And the same method we can call here. Once we are done that check, we have shown that particular specific message, then we can simply see that finish activity call method. So automatically, once the student registration is successful, we can finish that particular specific. Maybe we can put it inside it. When we are successful, then we finish it. Otherwise, we don't want to finish it because there is a failure. Maybe we need to change certain data or something like that, and then accordingly we can do the insert operation again. Okay, but anyway, in the case of success, we want to finish that activity and we will be coming back on the main activity. That's fine. Now we need to implement that particular specific login behavior. In the login behavior, again, if we look at our where is our main activity, so do we have it? No, it's closed. Where is the layout activity? So if we look at that again, here we have two input fields, and again remember that to input fields, empty input fields, we don't want to start the database operation. So first of all, we need to check, and again we have those fields here, so we need to define those variables here, so to access those fields. So let me what you can say that copy paste from my other demo that we have done in the class. We have the edit text. Okay, so I'm just trying to create those here, user data, and then we need to initialize those variables inside our we can say that okay, sorry. So we have that particular, so because we are not going to use those in the main thread operations, maybe I can keep it like there as a comment. So we have initialized those our edit text boxes, and that's we are going to check here. Okay, so we can say that what we can say, just like that we have checked before. So we can say that if our et username dot get text dot toString dot trim dot is empty. If it is empty, it means that user has not provided me the right information. So maybe I can just copy paste that particular specific toast and put it here. And then of course, because we are calling this particular inside the activity class, so we can simply say put this insertion failure, not insertion failure. Username is required. Fine. In the else part, else if et password dot get text dot toString dot trim dot empty. Okay, if it is an empty, again we have an issue with our input. Okay, the password is required. Password is required. And in the else part, if I would say that if both the information has been provided by the user, whether they are right or wrong, we are not we need to check from the database. So again, we need to perform a database operation, and because we are not allowed to run those database operation inside the main thread, main code, so we need to create a separate what you can say that we need to create a separate async task or separate thread. So we can say that private, it's a class, so we can say that read student by uname, and it extends the async task. It takes a student it takes a string as a input, it does not show me any progress. It does not show me, give me back any results. And as you know that it say that you need to implement that particular specific method, which is must. So we have to must implement. So again, I'm just trying to now we need to read that particular specific what you can say that based on that specific user information. Okay, so what we need to do here, we if we let me go back to our database access object. So if I just try to bring it here, uh, so in this particular specific we are having that particular specific method search student by username and pass a string as a, so we need to say that my DAO dot search username by user, and we say strings, and we provide the 0 as an input, and it will return me a list of students. So maybe I can say that we have that particular specific we are saying that we have a student is equal to null, and then we can simply say that that student, not string, student is equal to this. But remember that it is going to return me a what you can say that a list. So I don't want to check that thing here. The reason is that it will be returning me a list of student, and we can say that students and is equal to this. So that is fine. So we need to check if this particular specific students students dot is not equal to null. I mean, if it has returned me 0 empty string, or maybe I can say that students dot size is double equal to 0. If it is something like this, if it is 0, it means that there does not exist anything in our database with that specific username. Okay, so we are checking that when students dot size is double equal to 0, we can toast those information. Okay, or maybe I mean we don't want to check each and everything in our third class. Maybe we can put all those checks inside our so we can say that list, and we say that students is equal to, maybe we don't need to do that, and then we simply say that students is equal to this. Okay, so we have, I mean, if that particular specific operation is successful, it will return me something in that particular specific student. So we need to control O, we need to implement a post execution task. So post execution, fine. So what we need to check, if this particular specific students is double equal to null, maybe we can put that particular specific behavior here equal to default value. I mean, by default it should be null, but let me put that particular specific as a null. If it is a null, it means that this operation is not at all successful. And again, because we are writing that particular specific toast message inside our thread class, so we can say that get application context, that is going to solve our problem. So we can say that read operation failure. Read operation is failure if it that particular specific student's object is null. In the else part, else if students dot get size size is double equal to 0, in this particular specific part, this is not a failure of the read operation, but that particular specific username does not exist in our database. User does not exist. And if it is not the case, not null, it is has some information inside it, it means that we have certain information, we have that particular specific, what you can say that the user I mean we have that particular specific student record back returned by the database. So what we need to do now, the user exists in the database, it has returned back the information about that student, and now we need to compare the password which is given by the user and the password which is returned inside the student object by the database. If they are matching with each other, we can say that successfully created. So maybe I want to create, let me see, I mean I click event, and here I say that I have a private method which does not return me anything, and it will check password. So if the check password is fine, and it will also take a student object as a input. So what we are going to do here in the else part, so we have that particular student object inside our this students list. Okay, so we are going to pass, so we can say that check check password, and then we are passing that particular students dot get int, I mean 0 index value, that is the first value. So it will return back that particular specific students object to our check password. So in the check password, what we can say that we need to check the password. So we can say that if et user password, that is what we are exactly talking about, username, and where is that password, et user password, et user password dot get text dot to string dot equal, if it is equal to student dot get password. If they are equal, we are going to perform something, and if they are not equal, sorry, not reinforce, in the else part we are going to show a toast message. So what is the toast message here? Because the password is not equal, so we can password is wrong. We can simply say the password is wrong. If the password is right, what we need to do, we need to start a separate activity in which we can show the information about that specific user, and that we can, I mean we can what you can say that in which the user can edit those information, and then it can update those information. Maybe he want to delete those information, so it can provide, it can do different type of database operations on the information of his or her record. So for that, of course, we need to add a new activity. So we say that activity, empty activity. So we can say that student information, info MATION, information activity, and we say finish. So it will create that particular specific activity for me. Fine, that is so. Now let me see, we have the student information activity. So do you allow me to like getting all that informations from my other activity that we have already defined, and then we can put those information here. Again, I want to put some margin on the top, margin top 20 dp. Fine. And the other thing that is missing here is my gender information, which is not here. So I will try to find that particular specific gender information from my here, and then I put that particular specific spiner in my student activity, student information. So we have the ID, we have the first name, we have the last name, and then after the last name I want to put, we have that particular last name, st info, student info. I want to put that particular specific information about the spiner. So we have that particular student gender. Okay, so again I can simply say this thing. And where is my it is not this registration part, it is the st info, student info gender. Okay, so that we are not having the IDs which are conflicting with each other on different activities. Okay, we have that username, and then we also have that password. So we also have that particular specific mobile number. We have mobile number, and then we have the update, delete, and the cancel buttons. Fine. So I think that everything is set for our information showing up. So let me first implement that cancel info. The reason is that that's the simplest thing to do. So when see that we alt enter, create that particular specific thing, and again maybe we want to create a private method which uh, finish activity, and it does not take any input, and it will just call that particular finish method inside it. So here in that we are going to finish activity method. Okay, fine. So we have implemented the cancel button. So what else? So we have that update. Okay, so let me update. So again okay, we have that particular specific alt enter, and then we create that one. But before we can having all those things, we need to do a few things here. We need to implement a few things inside the student information. The reason is that we have those edit texts, and when you select that particular specific edit text, so let me come back here, and maybe we can just try to implement those where is that, the third button up delete. Okay, so this is a delete button. I say alt enter, create that particular, so we have which are not doing anything, update and delete. So but in the main activity, where is the main activity? In the main activity we can start that particular specific because the password is required, username is required. What is going on? Login button. Okay, that is a login button. Okay, in the login button we need to start that particular specific read student by username method. So again we can say that new read by student by username. We create that particular specific thread class, and then we are saying that execute, and then we are passing that particular specific username because this username is not empty. So et username dot get text dot to string. So we have started that particular specific thread, and once that particular specific thread has finished its job, it will go to the on post execute. It will check that the student is not null. If it is null, there's an operation failure, database failure. So if that has been returned 0, it means that user does not exist. And in the other case, we are going to check the password. If the password is equal, then we are going to start that particular specific activity that we have just created in added in our database. So what is that? We creating an intent. Intent is equal to new intent. We pass the this, and then we are saying that student information activity dot class, and then maybe I can just do that so that we can start that particular specific activity. And then here we are going to, and one more thing, as I told you, because we are going to show those information inside our student information, so we have already have that students object. So we want to insert that particular specific intent dot put extra, and we want to add those information. So let me actually, and you know that if we need to provide that particular specific variable name or the name that which we can identify the information that we have put in the intent, so we can identify those things. So let me, I have that particular specific public static final. So we have inside the main activity, we have defined this thing. So we can simply use that student object. So that is, we are going to use as stu student object, and then we are putting that particular specific student object. But the point is, if we look at that, it say that cannot resolve the method. The reason is that we are expecting something which is serializable. Student is not a primitive type, it is something which is a class type. So it need to be either parsable or serializable. So what we can, how we can make that particular specific student object as a serializable, we open our students class that we have defined as an entity, and then we say that it implements serializable. So when I do that, it will automatically what you can say that, where is my main activity, look, it say that that's fine now, because I can understand this particular specific student object is serializable. I can convert into a stream of bytes and put it into that particular specific intent message, and then later on I can access it in the similar way. So we can say that start activity intent. Okay, so we have started that particular specific intent. It means it will start this our student activity under activity underscore student underscore information, or student information activity activity. It will start that one. So until now, let me see if it is the case. It is providing me, it is checking all those things and providing me the right information or not. For example, remember that I have ABBAS, that is the username. Let me give a wrong password. I give 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, but actually password is up to 6, not 7. So if I just try to click on the login, it is meant password is wrong. Okay, it means that it has gone through all that particular specific process. And what is that particular specific process? And we are in the main activity. It has created, it has checked that there's no empty information. It has started that executed that particular specific thread. It come to that particular specific thread. It execute that database operation, return the list of students in the students variable. It is not null, it is does not have the size 0, and it has gone through that particular specific students. It passed check prop password, and inside the check password it is giving me password is wrong. So it means that we have come into that particular specific method over during our execution. Okay, so if I just try to remove that last 7 and try to give the login, look at that, it is starting that particular specific activity which we are expecting it to start. It means that my password has been correct, my username has been correct, we fetch the record from the database, and we have saved it here. We come into that particular specific what you can say that, in the specific uh, activity. Fine. Now, as you know that we have put that particular specific, where is our we have put that student object inside our intent. So inside our student information, we need to receive it back. We need to so we can say that student student. So we created a specific so we have created that particular student variable, student object variable, and now what we need to do is we need to access that particular specific student object that we have put into the calling intent, and initialize this particular specific variable that we have created here. So what we can do here, we can simply say that student is equal to get intent. This will give us the intent of that particular specific intent that contain that student object. So we can say that get serializable extra, and then as you know that in the main activity we have defined that student object as a string that we give that name here. And the other thing that is important here, because it is a serializable object which is coming as in form of a stream of byte, we need to explicitly convert that into a student object. So if we do that, and if we look at that, right after we have done that conversion, explicit conversion of the stream of byte into the student object, now it has been, so we have that particular specific student object with us in this student information activity. Now what we need to do, we need to initialize, we need to display all those information inside our user interface. And if we look at that, we have assigned them the different names, IDs of each of these edit texts that can be edited. Okay, same thing. So we need to initialize these objects, and then we put those information from the student object into those added text, into those informations, into those UI components. So again, what we can say that we have those variables that we need to initialize. So we can simply say that we have that particular specific informations that we need to initialize. So let me put that particular specific thing here. I'm just copy pasting from our in-class demo, remember. So I'm just having that. And the one thing that is missing here, the spinner. So because we have not used the spinner in our in-class demo, but for this video lecture I'm using that spinner. So I'm just trying to create SP, we say spinner. Actually it is spinner, it is route about the gender. So maybe we can SP gender. Okay, so we can have that one. And what else we have, that update results and delete result, just like we have used the insertion result for our registration form. So we are going to use that particular specific thing. So again, we can etsid is equal to find by, not kind by, it is find by view id r.id dot, we have st info as student id. And not this one. And okay, it should be like this. And we have also the etf name is equal to find by view id, not find activity, finish activity, find by view id r dot id dot. Then we have that particular st info, and we have the first name. We put, then we have et last name is equal to find by view id r dot id dot st info, and then we have the last name. And then we have to initialize our et username is equal to find by view id r dot id dot st info. Again we're talking about the username. And then we have et password, that will be find by view id r.id dot st info. Again we're talking about the password. And then we have et mobile is equal to find by view id r.id dot st info, and that is our mobile. Okay, and then finally we need to sp gender is equal to find by view id r dot id dot st info, related to that particular specific gender. Okay, so we have initialized all those variables. Now maybe, I mean, instead of putting all those things here, maybe we can make that particular specific thing in a more appropriate way. We can say that we have a private, we just don't return me anything, initialize UI, and maybe we can put all those informations here in this particular specific method. And then we can simply call that particular message specific method here. And of course we need to put all those values from the students table inside that particular specific thing, specific user interface. So we need to say that etsid dot set text Okay, and for that particular specific test we need to set student dot get sid, and as you know that this particular specific sid is integer, we need to convert that into the string. So maybe we can say that integer string. Let me see if it is we'd have string dot value of, and then we put that particular specific information, so that will convert that integer value into the string and put it into that particular specific sid, that edit text for the other thing that we want to make sure that this particular etsid is actually not enabled, because we cannot change. So etsid dot set enabled, we say that it is false. So we don't want that a user accidentally change that information, and when we click on the update button it try to update those information. We don't want to do that, so we make it enabled false. One thing, fine, and then we have fname dot set text, not enabled, set text, and then we can see whether the student dot get first name, because it is returning us these strings, so we don't need to do any typecasting here. Similarly, we say last name dot set text student not student dot get last name. Similarly, we say sid is done, username dot set text st student dot get username, and then password dot set text, and then we say that student dot get password. Okay, so we have set first name, last name, username, password, and then we talk about the mobile, mobile dot set text student dot get mobile number. And then similarly we can say that how we can set the spiner, that's another question, huh? So sp gender dot select set, we don't have any get selected item. So again, we know that the get selected item, we can simply say that if sp gender dot get selected item, get selected item dot toString dot equals, and we say that if it is equals student dot get gender. If they are equal, we don't need to change anything. Okay, so we try to put a negation in the beginning. So we are saying that if whatever that selected item, which is by default male, if it is not the gender of the student, then we need to change. Okay, so we did sp gender dot. Now what we can do, we can again look, I mean this is the situation which we have to find out way. Then we need to say that set selected item. Do we have something selected? Set selected. Okay, set selected, set location selection, set selection, int position. So in position, maybe I can say 1. The reason is that at the 0 index value we have the male, and the selection that we want to change, because it is the default behavior that's the male is there automatically. So if it is not the case that gender is female, then we can select the selection to 1. So let's see how it goes, and we will see that if it is the real scenario or not. If it is does not work, then we will try to find out a solution for that one. Okay, so we have put this first name, last name, username, password, mobile number, and then we also selected the appropriate what you can say that appropriate space. So we initialized all those user interface accordingly. Fine, so let me check. Let me check this particular specific thing, because we have initialized that thing here. So let's go back here, and then we say that Abbas, and then we say that 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then we can log in. And if we look at that, we have that mail, Abbas, 1 Malik, and just look at the student ID is 1. So it was added at that time when it was showing us the insertion failure message. Okay, so we have all those information. So let me cancel it and then try to change that particular specific thing from Aliza. Aliza is a female, so we can just try to check if it is actually selecting the right one. Look, so our what you can say that our selection dot set selection to 1, because we have two possible input values, two put source values. So 1 is the index value for the female, and the 0 is index value for the male. So by default it is 0 which is selected. So we are just trying to make sure that if the student gender is not male, then we need to change it to the 1, that is a female. So now we are in a right perfect situation where now the thing is, if for example when I get that particular and then I put something here, okay, are we are having, I mean, we need to implement a different, or not only the click. Even when I click on it, I click here, this particular specific edit text is getting the focus. When I click here, this is leaving the focus, and this one is getting the focus. So we have a specific uh, behavior that we need to attach with all of these edit texts, and then we also need to find out the behavior that we are going to fix with the SP gender, the spinner, that on that particular specific behavior we want to check that the user has changed that particular specific information in those input fields or not. So we need to add those behaviors. And what are those behaviors? And these behaviors we need to, again, I just try to put a what you can say that private dot private, it does not return me anything, set UI behaviors, and we want to do that. So first of all we need to set, for example, et first name dot set on focus change listener. And when we are talking about, we say that new on focus change listener. So actually if you look at that particular specific new view dot on focus change, it has a boolean value that is coming as an input. So this view is actually representing this particular specific edit text itself, and this boolean value is true or false. If it is true, it means that it is getting the focus. If B, it means that edit text is getting the focus of the user. Maybe I have put that focus of the user. This is the case that we are not interested in. The reason is that the user is coming inside that particular edit texts. So we want when it the user leave the focus of that particular specific edit text, then we want to check that if the user has made some changes in that input field or not. So we, instead of checking that particular specific B, we are saying that when it is not B, when it is not edit text is leaving the focus. Okay. So we are saying that when it's leaving the focus, we want to check. So first of all, we see that if that particular specific et first name dot get text dot toString dot equals of what? Student dot get first name. If they are equal, of course, there is no change has been made inside that particular specific edit text. And this is the case we are not interested in. We don't want to do anything in that case because there is no change in the information or the data. So we put a not here. So, and then in this case, we want the user has changed change the info in the input field. Okay, so now we want to, once this particular specific information has been changed, we want to update those information inside our student object. So what we want to do, we do student dot set first name, and then we are saying that et first name dot get text dot toString, whatever that information is in that particular first name edit text, we receive it and put it into the student table in the student object. That's what we are going to do for all the other first name, last name, username, password, and the mobiles. For the SP, we need to do it in a different way. So what we can do here, so maybe we can copy paste this thing, and then we can change that particular specific theme. Here we are saying that last name, rest will be the same. Here again we are taking the last name dot text is not equal to, and then here we are going to get last name, and then here we are again going to check get the information from the last name and set the last name. Okay, so fine, first name, last name, then we have the username, capital U. Okay, I think this is the right thing. Capital U, and the password and the mobile. So we have the capital U. The here we don't need to do that. Again, here we need to do the capital U. It is getting not the first name. We are dot get username. If they are not equal, then we need to we need to change that particular get the username information, and then we also need to set the username. Okay, and the similar thing for the, we have username, first name, last name, username, and then we also have the password. Et password, again we can say that password. Here we are not going to get that particular specific get password. If they are not equal, we are going to change that particular specific password. Again, we are set password. Fine, so we have been, first name is done, last name is done, username is done, password is done, and then we talk about the mobile. So we are saying this thing, and then we can say that mobile. Again, we are saying that mobile, and then here we are not going to get, we are going to get mobile number. Fine. Again, we are saying that from the mobile get the data and update the set mobile number. So here we are getting the get, and here we are setting if they are not equal. So we have done all those edit text, and now we talk about, so we will be talking about that SP spiner, SP gender dot, and then we have that particular specific set on item selected listener. So whenever we are selecting a new an item, we will check that if that particular specific selected item is different from the student's object or not. So we can say that on new on item selected listener. So here we are having four. This is the adopter view, this is the view in which we are showing up, or the click even happened, this is the position, this is the long. But we remember that we have just checked this thing here, that if that particular specific selected item is different from the value inside our student object, we are going to use the same. But of course we are not going to dot selection is equal to 1, so we are not going to do that particular specific thing. So we are saying that here, that the selected item inside that spinner, if that particular specific item converted into the string is equal to the gender inside the student object. If it is not, then we are going to change. So how, what we are going to change, we say the student dot set gender, and then we are again trying to get that particular specific information out of it. Okay, so in this way we are changing that particular specific behavior, that gender inside that particular specific student object. Okay, so this is the on selected item. So we have set all of these specific set behaviors on each and every thing. One thing and one more thing, that if we are saying that whenever that particular specific um, edit text is getting focus, we say that it should select all. So we can say that et fname dot select select all on focus on select all. What is that one? So let me see in my we say that dot select all. Okay, etf name dot select all. So it is going to select all the text which is automatically there. So I think that we can just copy paste this particular specific behavior with every, whenever it is getting the focus, it is going to select that particular specific text inside that particular specific edit field. Okay, yes. So we are just trying to of course that's not we are going to do with the spinner. So once we have done all that set UI behavior, because it is a separate method, we need to call that particular method within our set UI behaviors inside our own create. So we are initializing our user interface, we are setting all those behaviors. So that's what we have set for all of the things. Now if we look at that, we have implemented only our cancel button. Now we need to implement our update button. So if we go into our update, so we have implemented the cancel button. Now we need to implement the update, and you know that we cannot perform that database operation inside our activities. We need to create a separate, what you can say, that a private class. We can say that update student, and that should be the child class of AsyckTask. It will take a student object as an input. It does not report any progress, and it does not return me anything. And as you know that we need to implement one behavior, that is one method, which is actually the do in background. Okay, so that is the method which is being executed when you create that particular thread object and start its execution. This is the method which is going to be executed. So of course what we want to, we have the, in the main activity we have that DAO, and then we want to update the student. And update the student, we need to provide that particular students, not student, we need to provide that particular what you can say, that the things that's coming as a input. So students sub 0. So whatever in that particular student's object is, it is going to be updated inside the database. Okay, so remember that this particular specific method is going to alt enter, we have that particular specific DAO. So update student is going to return me an integer value, and if you remember correctly that we have defined those integer values, update result and delete result. So we can simply come back here and then we say that it is an update result is equal to this. And as you know that we cannot and inside our what you can say that on the click event we can simply say that. So we are going to create a new update student class, and we are going to execute and providing that particular student object as an input to this one. So it will execute this particular specific method. First it will create this particular part, it will create that particular object of the thread, and then it will start the execution and take a parameter student as an input, and that will come into this particular specific method. In this add the index value 0, and then it will be start that particular what you can say that it will start inserting that but updating that particular values inside our database. Again, we want to check if we have successfully updated the information or not. So again, we need to implement control O. We need to implement that particular on post execute method. So in the on post execute method, we will check that if the update result is not equal to -1. And did we initialize that particular update result to the -1? No. So of course we need to initialize. We have been initializing everything here, so maybe we can initialize that thing here. Update result is equal to -1, and delete result is equal to -1. So we are updating them with the negative values, and then we are checking that particular specific behavior here, that if it is not the case, then we can toast make text get application context, and then we can provide a message what you can say that student record has been updated, and then we can say that toast dot long and dot show. So in this case we can show this thing because it is not -1. I would say that we can also check exactly update result is double equal to 1. Okay, we can check this thing if you want, and then we can in the else part we can simply say that has not been updated 6. Okay, so we can have this thing. So we are done with our updation things. Now we will look at the delete button. Again, we want to delete, we want to perform so a delete operation on our database. So first of all we need to create that particular thread class. So we say that delete student, and that should be the child class of async task, and it should take a student object as an input. It does not show me any progress, and then it also does not give me back any uh, return value. Again, we need to implement that particular alt enter and implement that specific method, and in this particular specific method we are doing exactly the same thing, but instead of having the delete operation delete result update result, we are using the delete result, and that will be main activity dot my dao dot up delete student, and then it will take students sub 0 as an input value. It will update, and similarly if we want to check it has been updated successfully or not, we can implement control O, and we want to implement that particular on post execution method. And in the post execution we can simply, if that delete result is double equal to 1, I mean now I'm just trying to use something which is very concrete. What is the result? It should have returned me 1 because only one record we are trying to update, so it should have returned me 1. So I mean you can choose whatever you want. So again, the student record has been deleted, and in the else part we can say that student has not been deleted. Okay, so if we look at that, we have done our implementation of that particular specific student. So let me run that particular specific application. We try to log in into this thing, and then we have that particular specific information. Let me change it to the female. So once it is female, again look at that, at this particular point it is not updated inside the database unless and until we click on the update button. So let me click on the update button. So it say that has been updated, record has been updated. That's fine. Let me go back and then again log in. Now if I see my gender, you can see that it is female now by default. Okay, that has been changed. Maybe I can change my student last name, Malik. What you can say that, anything, Malik, Mike. Okay, and then again I press the update. When I press the update, it has been updated, but again maybe this information has not been updated yet. The reason is that we have not lost the focus. Okay, so that we need to be careful. I mean we can try to think as much as possible scenarios of the usage. So because look, we are still in the focus of that particular specific edit text, and we click on the update. So if I go back and just try to log in again, does it update it? No. So we need to think about it, that how we can solve that particular specific problem. We have changed the information and then we click on the update button. So we may need to update some behaviors, add more behaviors inside this particular specific edit text, maybe on change listener. And if there is something changing inside that particular specific, we have different type of maybe I will show you exactly that. Et last name dot set on set alt enter, yep, set on focus change listener. Maybe I set on focus change listener, on capture pointer, on click listener, on context listener, on create context listener. So there are a lot of things. Key listener, on key listener, I mean there is some key has been pressed on it. So what, on long click listener, on scroll, on touch listener. Yeah, whenever we are touching in that particular specific behavior, that particular specific UI component, you want to see that. So we have a lot of things that we need to see, that maybe we can say that on what you can say that the hover listener, key listener, whenever there is a key press in that particular specific behavior user interface, we need to implement that particular specific event so that we can overcome that particular specific behavior. So I mean because we are still in the focus, it is not updated inside the student object. As long as we remove that particular, we move away from that particular specific edit text, then if I click on the update and then I click cancel and then again I log in, you will see that now I have that Malik Mike is updated over there. So Malik, and I want to update into my Malik Abbas, maybe I want to change it back to the mail, update, and then we say cancel, we say login, so you can see that I have the correct information. So this is a demonstration, okay, uh, for our practical scenarios in which we can add, insert, update, delete. We can create the complete database using the Room framework, and that's it. So hopefully you have enjoyed this video and you learned something that you need to implement in your SDLT04. Best of luck.